I work the late night shift at a fast food drive-thru. After my last shift, I never want to work there again. Written by Pudenator. I work the night shift at a small fast food restaurant 5 nights a week. The food joint is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I just happen to be the unlucky who has to work the drive-thru from midnight till 8 in the morning. Well, me and 16-year-old Ethan. But he might as well not even be there. In fact, he isn't really there because he prefers to go out in the car park and get high. I would complain about him, but he's the boss's son, so it wouldn't do much good anyway. So, 5 days a week, I run this restaurant basically by myself. Usually it's fine, not many customers come through at that time, apart from a few young people and a few stoners that have the munchies. So usually it's an easy shift, except for last night. The events of last night make me want to never work the night shift again. It all started when I arrived at work at midnight, like I always do. I managed to say a quick hello to Ethan before he quickly made his way out to the car park. The joint practically lit as he walked outside. I then went over to the cooking area, made sure that everything was working properly, then I made my way over to the drive-thru window. I put on my headset and I watched the cameras for the first customer to arrive. It was around 12:30 when the first car drove up to the drive-thru speaker and placed their order. A large chips and a 12-pack of nuggets. The usual sort of order that you get at this time of night. I served them their food and wished them a good night. Then I began to wait again, waiting for the next customer. It was 1:15 when the old black Cadillac drove up to the drive-thru speaker. The Cadillac looked quite used and the black paint was beginning to fade and was now more of a gray color. All the windows were very darkly tinted and it was impossible to see into the car from the cameras. I heard a slightly crackly sound through my headset and I saw the driver of the car had wound down his window just a crack. Just enough to speak through, but not enough for me to see into the car. He then cleared his throat, which was the sound that I had heard through the headset speaker. "Good evening, what would you like to order?" I asked through the microphone. A deep, croaky voice then replied,
"I'm after some chicken nuggets and a kid's meal."
I heard the creaky voice say through the speaker in my ear. "I can get you some nuggets, sir, that's not a problem," I replied to the man. But unfortunately, the kids' meal is only available between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m., so I cannot give you that at the moment. I thought that I was polite with my answer, but the man driving the Cadillac obviously didn't agree because he quickly replied,
"USOB won't serve me because I'm not a kid,"
he said with obvious contempt towards me. Before I could reply, the front wheels of the Cadillac began to spin and a little bit of smoke started spewing from the back tires. Suddenly, the car lurched forward and I saw the red lights of his taillights and then he was gone. He had driven out of the drive-thru at great speed, obviously in anger. It was very strange, but I had dealt with angry and slightly unhinged customers before, so I didn't really think too much of it. It wasn't until I saw the same black Cadillac pull up an hour later. That's when I thought that something wasn't quite right here. The car slowly made its way up to the drive-thru speaker, its headlights shining brightly into my eyes as it drove. Once I saw that the car was lined up with the speaker, I knew that I had to be diplomatic about this and try my best to sound friendly and polite. "How can I help you tonight? What would you like to order?" I asked in the best customer service voice that I could muster. There was silence for a moment, and then, through the camera, I saw the driver's side window begin to slide down. Once again, only a small crack, not big enough to see through. Then I heard the same deep and croaky voice speak.
I want to order the kids' meal.
The voice said, or rather it demanded. I'm very sorry, sir, but the kids' meal is not available at this time, I replied, still trying to sound as friendly as possible.
It's because I'm not a child, isn't it? That's why you won't serve me the kids' meal.
The voice responded with a more aggressive tone. I mean, technically you have to be under 18 in order to purchase a kids' meal at this restaurant. Or you need to be purchasing it for someone who's under 18. But that is not the issue tonight. It's because you're trying to order. I was cut off from speaking by the sound of the engine roaring and the tires screeching as the Cadillac suddenly took off, a cloud of smoke coming from the back tires. It was beginning to be a bit more concerning that this man was so desperate for a kids' meal. But at this point, I was still just thinking that he was a difficult customer. The next hour of my shift went like normal. I served a few high school kids who must have just gotten their license. Then I served a group of people who were in the back of a taxi. This was all pretty normal for the late shift at the drive-thru, and I thought that my night was returning to normal. Until I saw two bright headlights appear. They were blindingly bright, and I had to squint to see past the beams of light that were penetrating into my eyes. I didn't even really have to squint to know who it was that was driving towards the drive-thru speaker. I knew that it was the black Cadillac once again. The car pulled up next to the speaker. The dark tinted window rolled down just an inch, and then I heard the same voice through my headset.
I have asked you time and time again for a kids' meal, and you will not provide. I know it's because you know that I'm not a kid, and so you will not serve me. Well, guess what? I went and I found a kid, so now you have to serve me.
As soon as I heard the words, "found a kid," I began to get incredibly nervous. What did he mean by that? I didn't know how to respond to this. I just stood there in the small drive-thru booth for a moment, not knowing what to do or to say. Then my headset let out a small crackle, and once again, I heard the croaky voice.
Would you like to see?
The voice said just before it let out a small, raspy laugh. A laugh that I could tell meant nothing good. It sounded like he wanted to show me, and he knew that what he had to show me, I wouldn't like. Before I could respond, I heard a loud thud through my headset. It startled me and brought me back to the reality of my situation. My heart began to pump faster, and I could feel sweat beginning to form on my forehead. I then noticed the image that was being shown on the screen in front of me. I could see the black Cadillac on the screen, and on the passenger's side, I could see that there was now someone sitting there. I recognized them instantly. It was Ethan. His head was being pressed up against the black tinted window, but you could tell who it was.
See, I told you I had a kid now, so you will serve me the kids' meal.
The voice suddenly spoke. I pulled the headset off of my head and I threw it to the ground. I didn't want to hear any more. I was about to try and run outside to try and help Ethan, but before I could even move, the black Cadillac began to move, and it disappeared from the drive-thru and into the night. I quickly called the police, and they soon sent a couple of officers out to assist me. I explained everything that had happened, about the black car, about the driver wanting the kids' meal, and of course, about Ethan. I described his face being pushed up against the windscreen and how the man had driven off with him still in the car. The police wrote all of this down, and just after I had finished describing the events of the night to one of the officers, the other one suddenly burst into the room in a panic. I don't remember all of the details of what happened after that, but I do remember both officers rushing outside. I know that I followed them. I wanted to know what was happening. I do remember walking through the car park and then walking up to what both officers were standing over. And I definitely remember the sight of Ethan's headless body lying on the ground, a joint still lit in his hand. The rest of the night went past quickly. The police continued to question me, and I don't remember much about that. What I do remember, though, very vividly, was when I returned home in the early hours of the morning. I walked up to my front porch, and I saw a box sitting on the front step. As I got closer and closer, I slowly began to realize what the box was. It was a kid's meal box from my restaurant, just sitting by itself on the front porch. I got closer to it, and when I was close enough to grab it, I very slowly leant down to pick it up. When I began to lift it, I could feel that it was a bit weighty. There was definitely something inside the box. I slowly lifted the lid, and the strong smell of meat started to waft to my nose. I really didn't want to keep lifting the lid, but I just couldn't stop myself. I lifted the lid the rest of the way. Inside, when I looked, I saw that it was filled with chicken nuggets. That wasn't what was disturbing, though. What was so disturbing was that in the middle of the box, on top of all of the nuggets, was a severed nose.